Meghan's former nanny, some call her the housemaid, has finally stepped forward, and the moment she opened her mouth, the story the world thought it knew cracked in half. She says she lived inside that California mansion long enough to witness the truth behind the polished photos, the soft documentaries, the carefully staged smiles, and according to her, nothing. Not the family moments, not the pregnancies, not the image of a warm home matched what people were led to believe. She claimed she saw things that never made the headlines, moments that were never meant for the public, including one explosive fight that left the house trembling and left Harry walking those halls like a man who didn't know which version of his life was real anymore. But her most shocking claim isn't about the fights or the tension or even Meghan herself. It's about what she didn't see. Because this woman says that in all her months inside the mansion, 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week, she never once saw Archie. She never once saw Lit. Not a cry, not a laugh, not a toy left out of place. Nothing that proved two small children lived inside that enormous home. And now, with the silence finally broken, one question has exploded louder than ever. If Meghan's own nanny never saw Archie and Lit, why has the world never truly seen them either? And next, she shared deep inside information on Meghan and Harry most people did not know about. Before anyone ever stepped foot into that mansion as a nanny, they had to survive one of the strangest hiring processes the staff had ever heard of. According to people close to the search, Meghan had a very specific requirement. The nanny could not be too attractive, not glamorous, not polished, not someone who might stand out in photos. The goal was simple: blend in physically. In a home built around image, even the staff had to disappear into the background. But that was only the surface. Once candidates made it deeper into the interviews, the real rules appeared. They had to be available 24 hours a day. They couldn't have a partner. They couldn't have children of their own. They had to be willing to move at a moment's notice without asking where or why. It wasn't a job. It was a life takeover. And before they ever shook Meghan or Harry's hand, they would undergo the most unusual test of all. The Sussex mansion looked peaceful from the outside. Sprawling gardens, soft sunlight, picture-perfect views. But according to those who worked inside, it operated more like a controlled environment. The trial shift wasn't just about showing childcare care skills. It was a silent audition watched from every angle. Hidden cameras recorded everything: how the candidate spoke, how they handled stress, how they treated the chef or the cleaners. Even the smallest mistake was captured on screen. By the time a nanny sat across from Meghan and Harry, decisions had already been made. The interview was just a final check to confirm the woman in the room behaved exactly like the woman on the footage. Inside that home, nothing happened without being seen. Nothing was private. Nothing was natural. It was a household built on control. And soon the staff would learn that the same control stretched far beyond the hiring process and straight into the heart of the family's most private story. Long before the public ever noticed anything unusual, tension was already brewing inside the Sussex household. And it began with something as simple as choosing a nanny. Prince Harry grew up under the care of a Norland nanny, the gold standard in royal childcare. Norland nannies are disciplined, discreet, and trained to protect both a child and a family's image with absolute loyalty. Naturally, Harry wanted the same stability for his own children. But Meghan, she didn't want that world. Not the uniforms, not the structure, not the traditions that came with it. According to sources close to the home, Meghan demanded a different model entirely, something modern, flexible, California-inspired. She wanted a nanny who felt like family, not staff. No outdated routines, no royal fingerprints, nothing that tied her new household to the old one. This disagreement might sound small, but inside the mansion, it was the start of a quiet divide. Harry leaned toward tradition. Meghan leaned toward total reinvention. And from that moment forward, every childcare decision reflected her vision, not his. The message was clear. The old rules were gone. The Sussex home would function by Meghan's design alone. But even with all this planning, something still didn't add up. Because even after building the perfect childcare system around her preferences, no one ever actually saw the children. When the maid talks about her time serving the Sussexes, she doesn't exaggerate. She doesn't guess. She simply describes what she saw every single day. She arrived before sunrise. She left around 8 at night. She moved through every room, every hallway, every corner of the home, and in all that time, she never saw Archie. Not once. She never saw Leet. Not once. She didn't even see signs that children lived there. No baby socks on the laundry table. No picture books on the floor. No snacks left half-eaten. No stroller by the door. Not even a stray crayon under the couch. Homes with little children always carry a certain kind of joyful chaos. Toys appear in places they don't belong. Fingerprints show up on glass. Baby monitors hum quietly in the background. But this home, it was silent. Almost too perfect, as if the idea of children existed there. But the children themselves did not. The maid says the silence became so noticeable that it almost felt loud. Day after day, she expected something to break the stillness. A cry, a laugh, even a tiny footstep. But nothing ever did. And then came the detail that shook everything even more. The maid had grown used to keeping quiet. The rules inside the Sussex mansion were strict, and privacy was enforced like a law. But when the Netflix documentary finally came out, she watched it out of simple curiosity, wondering how the home she knew so well would be shown to the world. She expected small edits or pretty lighting. She did not expect an entirely different reality. Scene after scene flashed across the screen. Meghan cradling a belly, Harry laughing as he chased children through bright gardens. Moments of joy captured in soft slow motion. But to the maid, something was wrong. The rooms were different. The angles didn't match. The shots of Meghan pregnant could not have been filmed during the time she worked there. And the garden scenes. Those cheerful clips of Harry and Meghan letting chickens roam, while Archie ran around, felt like a fairy tale she had never witnessed. Yes, she says the chicken coop existed, but no, she never saw a child playing there. Not Archie, not Leet, not even once. To her, that coop wasn't a family playground. It was a prop set up to create the image of a warm, hands-on parenting life the staff inside the home never saw. As she watched the documentary, she felt the same cold unease she had carried for months. Not because it looked happy, but because she knew it wasn't real. The world was being shown a story. She had lived the truth. And they were nothing alike. If the documentary was the polished surface, the inside of the mansion was the locked vault beneath it. The maid describes the rules not as guidelines, but as restrictions designed to keep every unapproved moment hidden. The gates were the first boundary. Your phone was taken before you walked inside. Bags were checked for recording devices. Even a forgotten smartwatch could send the security team into a quiet panic. Every worker, maids, chefs, gardeners, drivers knew the same truth. Inside these walls, nothing could ever be documented. Not a photo, not a quiet conversation, not an accidental glimpse of anything real. It didn't feel like a home where children were being raised. It felt like a place where secrets lived. Staff described the atmosphere as heavy, like every room carried a silent instruction. Do your job. Ask nothing. Share nothing. See nothing. The more time she spent inside that house, the more the maid felt that the silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Carefully maintained, carefully enforced. And yet, even with all the secrecy, she noticed something about the people who lived there that shocked her more than any security rule. When the cameras were around, Meghan and Harry appeared united, glowing, in sync. But behind closed doors, the maid saw a different picture, one without the edited smiles and perfect angles. She describes Meghan as present only when filming was planned. Her energy shifted when the cameras were gone, her tone sharper, her movements precise, as if every moment was calculated. Harry, on the other hand, seemed quieter, smaller somehow. She often found him silent after arguments, moving through the house like someone trying not to disturb the air around him. He didn't carry the brightness people expected from a new father. Instead, he seemed weighed down by stress, by tension, or by something she couldn't name. The marriage didn't feel like a home. It felt like a company with two executives, one giving the orders, the other trying to keep the peace. And through all of this, one thing remained painfully consistent. There were still no children. Not in the halls, not in the garden, not in the nursery, not anywhere. And that emptiness combined with the secrecy, the silence, and the controlled narratives leads us into the question that has now become impossible to ignore. When you gather every detail, every quiet moment, every missing clue, the story forms a picture you can't look away from. A woman works inside the mansion for months, but never sees Meghan pregnant. A home is designed around childcare rules, but no nanny ever cares for a child. A documentary shows family life. But according to the maid, the scenes weren't filmed in the home she served in. A chicken coop becomes a symbol of simple living, but no child ever played there. A house is filled with surveillance and restrictions, yet empty of the joyful noise that children bring. Meghan appears in the mansion, mostly when cameras arrive. Harry walks its halls in silence, and the staff, those who see the most, say the same thing again and again. There were no children, not once, not ever. So now the question becomes the quiet drumbeat beneath everything else. If the people who lived inside that house never saw Archie or Liet, then where were they? It is the question the documentary didn't answer. The question no photograph has explained. The question that grows louder with every detail shared by those who worked behind the scenes. And maybe that's why the silence around the children feels so heavy. Because silence only grows when something is being carefully, deliberately hidden. The world was shown a perfect family. But according to the woman who lived inside that mansion, the greatest mystery of the Sussex story isn't what we've seen. It's what we haven't. And now that the silence has cracked, one truth is clear. This story is far from over. And the next chapter, whatever it reveals, may be the one that finally answers the question no one can dismiss anymore. Where were Archie and Liet?